Good morning. Welcome to Books at the Bottom of the Stairs. My name's Lorene, and I'm speaking to you from our camp just around the bottom of the Medway River in Nova Scotia. Welcome back, and welcome if you're new. So at the camp, I end up getting about 2 shelves worth of books about every 14 days, thereabouts. And they're a combination of library books and books that I have sort of gathered up over the course of the year and set aside in order to read during this month of August. So this time round, we also popped into Liverpool and went to the South Shore Regional Library and picked up some books, which I have already mentioned. And one of the ones that I picked up that I'm really excited about to recommend, now I'm sure all of you know Sarah Moss. There we go. Sarah Moss is one of those Coolio authors who everybody loves, and I just am very late to the party. But this is called Ghost Wall, and I found it fascinating. It was when was it published? It was completely 2018. It was completely a different kind of book for me. I think there's another one out there somewhere that was written that had a similar kind of. I should start at the beginning. Okay, we've got a young girl. She's sort of about 16. And where is her name? Sylvie. Sylvie is named for an ancient Celtic goddess, and her dad is very much into the Iron Age, recreational history kind of thing. Not recreational, not recreational, because he takes it so seriously. Like he's obsessed with it, and he's a brutal man. He drives a bus, not that they necessarily go hand in hand at all, but he just has a very linear kind of a life. He doesn't enjoy it, and he wants to get back to the Iron Age, where his racism and his exclusionist attitudes and his misogyny and all kinds of icky things just are allowed to roam free, because who really knows what the Iron Age was like, and he just pronounces. So he gets in connection with a professor who is doing experiential archaeology, and he has 3 students and himself, and they go on this reenactment, reliving of the Iron Age. They're wearing the clothing of, trying to eat the food of. There's so many things wrong with that approach from... Interestingly, as a side note, experiential learning is one of the things that both my husband and my daughter have as part of their education, either as a professor or as a student, and as also... daughter Phoebe has got some sort of professional work in it outside of school. So you're supposed to go into an environment and recreate to the best of your ability Edwardian kitchens or middle-aged stables, or whatever the case is. And the idea is to not mimic it to the point of insanity, but to just, like, what would it be like as best as we're able. So, for instance, if they didn't have sheep at that particular time, they wouldn't eat sheep. They would try and eat meat that was of the time. So I'm going off on a whole bunch of tangents, but I found this book so fascinating because the dad just kept getting it wrong, and he sends out his daughter and the students to go foraging, and they've only got about 2 acres of wood to do this foraging in. And Iron Age people would have had miles of places to, and they would have known where stuff was, and they wouldn't have been battling with farmlands and creeks that were running filthy, and just all kinds of things. So what's the plot? This dad gets together with his professor. They've set up this camp. They're trying to have an experiment, and along the way, they've decided it would be really cool to reenact, to some degree, a sacrificial moment in an Iron Age week. So, poor Sylvie. Sylvie is really not. Sylvie is damaged by her dad's idiocies. There's just, oh my goodness. I like, it's a short book. So, what is it? It would work for Shorty September. It's 132-ish pages. And we follow the story of Sylvie and how she's got to navigate through this weird land of reenacting the Iron Age, but also one of the students is sneaking off to the local gas station to get treats and milk and apples and so, and hiding it from the professor and the dad. And so things start to go sideways, and that's where the end of the book gets really interesting. And there's just, if you like to read any kind of history and you sort of have some ideas about pre-Roman history in England and so forth, this is just, it's interesting from that point of view. It's interesting from Sylvie's point of view, and also watching, it's that sort of moment in is that Lord of the Flies, where everybody kind of all of a sudden shifts reality and forgets that there's such a thing as a moral compass, and or the moral compass shifts. And so it's very, very, very interesting. I'm completely committed to Sarah Moss now because I'm going to go out and get the rest of her books. All right, completely the opposite side of the spectrum is Baking with Kafta Comics by Tom Gauld, Gauld, and I am going to go to the trouble of purchasing his books. This is geared to people who really love literature, who are writers perhaps, or wish to be a writer, or know of a writer. If this would make a great book, I'm just thinking about that. A great gift, great gift. So he's got all these little comics that he does. There are some characters that repeat, but pretty much each page is a different kind of approach. So we've got a story here about different kinds of Jaws reboot possibilities if you were to rewrite the script, and I'll just hold it there for a sec so you can read it. And then on the second page he's got something completely other. And he gets, I can just kind of imagine him driving down the road and getting some kind of like really smart-ass thing going on in his head. And he just commits himself to 4 panels or sometimes a little bit more. And oh my goodness, it's so funny. We've got the writer there, the one I just showed you, and she's worried about a funny story, whether the joke in the story is actually funny. And that's me. I do write, and I try to be on the humor side of things. And I'll go, is that funny? Isn't it funny? I'm laughing. I'm still laughing. Oh, I read that 2 weeks ago. I'm still laughing. And so she's like totally struggling. And then the reader's just like, ha ha. Yeah. I think it's really, really wonderful. So here we've got last minute changes to a politician's speech. How's your speech coming along, sir? Almost done. I'm just trying to decide whether to end on the misleading statistics, the gross oversimplification, the glib soundbite, or the blatant lie. And then across from it, I mean, it's also funny in how he's chosen to lay the book out, design-wise, because he's got these little kids also being... Oh my goodness. It's very good. Very good. I think he writes for the New Yorker, if I'm not mistaken. Anyways, it doesn't matter, but he's a well-known artist and comic writer, so yeah, I recommend that one. I think that he's got 2 others, and I will hopefully purchase them and let you know. All right, I just finished reading The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mandel, and I think this one is probably my least favorite, although I read it lickety split. We've got a glass hotel which is in the middle of one of the islands up around, oh my goodness, BC, between Vancouver and Vancouver Island, sorry. And so it's one of the islands that are in there, and this incredible luxury hotel has been purchased. And why I loved it was this author has just got such a beautiful craftsmanship with sentences and setting, and not only nature setting, but we also end up in New York and Dubai and on a a container ship, you know, those ships that have got like millions and millions of stacks of containers on it. Everywhere that she takes us, we really know where we are. And although the characters shift with the settings, we just, it's an easy flow. We're not really lost as to which character is in which setting. The characters change settings, but the part that I struggled with a little bit is that there are a lot of characters, and although they weren't hard to keep track of, I wasn't 100% sure where we were going. It's definitely, I would say I'm making this up. I have no basis of fact on any of this. It's kind of like a travel log in a sense, is that we see the lives of a brother and sister, and then there's a man who is, well, it's a bit of a spoiler, close your ears. There's a man who is running a Ponzi scheme, and so we meet him and his sort of associates, and some of these things link up, and some of these things don't link up. They stay in their own little spirals, and but where are we going? That part I wasn't really very clear on. And even as I get towards the end, although there's a logical conclusion and it ends out quite nicely, it's a series of vignettes in people's lives and interactions and intersections. And I think this plot is not terrifically strong, but I think that's on purpose. I think she's much more involved in who her characters are. I think this is very much a character-driven book. And also, I mean, it's just such a treat in terms of excellent writing craftsmanship. So, however, I would say that, you know, of the other two, Sea of Tranquility and Station 11, I would, because I'm plot-driven, I would rank them differently. But if you love your characters, I think that this book kind of addresses some of the concerns that you might have had in the other ones, where there are so many characters we don't really get to see any plausible character development amongst them. So this is just a very nice complement to the other two. Yeah, just totally, strongly recommend. All right, I had this when I showed this one in a previous video. It was going to be on my to-do list, and this is a not going to do it book. I started to read it, the first chapter and a half, I think, and it was something that I got. This is one of those advanced reader copies, so I got it for free, and it just happened to come across my steps at the bottom of the steps, and just don't love it. I can't really get into it. She's a character who is extremely impulsive and very sort of monofocused, and I just don't love it. Now, this one I picked up last year from Block Shop Books as an impulse read, and it's by, I believe it's by a local author, Kate Story, and again, I'm not loving it. So I think that because I've got so many other books that I'm really interested in, I'm going to put this one aside and see whether it comes back up onto my to-do list. You know, maybe it's a good February read when you kind of settle down with a lot of stuff you just wouldn't otherwise read. February, the month of books you didn't really want to read. Okay. All right, the next book I read, which I really loved, All My Rage by Sabaa Tahir. Now, this is a YA book, and it was last year's winner for the Prince Award, coming out of the American Library Association's choices. And we've got two settings, Lahore, Pakistan, which was where our characters arise from, and Juniper, California, where our characters are currently living. So the two kids are Salahuddin and Noor, and they call him Sal for short. And Sal and Noor are not related by blood, but they're related by culture, and they're in a community where there's very few Muslims and very few Pakistani Muslims. And so Noor was a young girl when there was an earthquake in her village, and her uncle came and tried to rescue whomever, and eventually Noor gets rescued out from underneath the rubble, and he's he gives up his life in order to try and be the parent and the family and everything like that. But is that really true? Is there another point of view? And then we've got Sal, whose parents were happily married in Pakistan, but they had a dream to run a hotel. And so there's a hotel in Juniper, California that they purchased, and it's close to an army base. So, there's theoretically quite a lot of good traffic for people coming in and out of the army base and in the community and so on. So it should be a good going concern. But unfortunately, Mom gets sick and Dad has a drinking problem, which is quite extraordinary for someone of Muslim faith. They don't drink. And so there's all that, like there's the problem of having an alcoholic parent, but there's also having the problem of no one in their faith group is going to really understand this dilemma. Except from a point of view of compassion, but like not many people are going to have an experience of an alcoholic in the family or in the friend group. So Sal has to try and figure out how to run this motel with his mom being of diminishing capacity and his dad sort of just checking out all the time. And there was a pun. So they both have trouble in school because what's on the surface is not what's actually happening, and they're not coping with it terrifically well. And these two have come together because of their cultural background and have been together since they were about six or 7 years of age, and they're now in their 17, 18 years of age. So there's unrequited love, or is there? There's a sexual assault, we're pretty sure, but what kind and whom received that? Whom received that sexual assault? There's death, because for sure Noor, when she was a child, she was the only one came alive out of the entire village that was caught in this earthquake. So there's lots of, and they're actually, I'm 100% sure, there is trigger warnings for drug, alcohol, physical abuse, Islamophobia, mentions of repressed sexual assault, tense exchange with law enforcement, and death. However, I think they were all excellently handled. I think one of the things I really liked about this book, unlike some of the other teen trauma books, is that they were all entirely plausible. They were all, it wasn't like, there's some of the stories that you read, you've got to have so much extraneous things happening so that the actual trauma that the kids are experiencing can take place. This is because of the background and the history with the earthquake and so on. It's just, everything just is a natural progression from one thing to the next. So it doesn't feel like, a friend is a murderer, or sometimes those YA books can get a little distracted. I've got a mosquito bite down there. So this I completely love and would really recommend. I think that it's a strong enough book that those of you who don't like YA or think you don't will like this. I think that it's because these kids are very mature for their age. I mean, they just really haven't had childhoods the way a lot of white middle-aged, that's me, white middle-class kids would have. Nothing was ever idyllic in their worlds, and so you get a more mature character going through these dilemmas. So I really, really liked it. And now, I'm pretty sure she has written other things, but I think it's a fantasy, a series. I will check on that when I get home. It's called An Ember in the Ashes Quartet, and because it's a quartet, I'm just making an assumption that it's science fiction. All right, the last one that I read, I have been meaning to read this, based on Gina Reed's, is that her book? Gina Stainer. And what is her blog? I think it's called Gina Reed's. Anyhow, she loves the Miss Reed series. And my Larry put this as book number 1. It's not. It's about book number 6 or something like that. And The School at Thrush Green. This is I'm sure that Gina has explained this much more clearly than I will. It's sort of an idyllic book. We've got a number of characters in the village of Thrush Green, and we're following their days. They're little vignettes and sequences of events, and there's sort of, there's sort of a gently waving plot that's going through. Basically, the 2 school teachers are going to be retiring from school, and so the associated decisions and anxieties and changes of life style that are happening as they get towards retirement, as well as where they're planning to go. These are all part of the things that are explored, but also there are there's side characters, and we see their little bits and too there as well. There's the Lovelock sisters who need someone to help doing the housework that's got far-reaching things. There's a character called Ditty who wants a pond for her ducks and that kind of spreads out. There's Albert, who's had bronchitis at the beginning of the story and basically just wants to get better so he can go and have pints of beer with his buddies at the pub next door. So we get a beginning, a middle, and an end, but it's very bucolic, the word is escaping me. It has to do with cottages and fields of sheep, and I can't remember but there's a sort of word that captures that essence. So I really enjoyed it, and I think even though I read it out of order, I don't think that's a real problem. I think that we're going to keep bumping into these characters over the series, and so I'm committed enough that I'm going to see whether my local bookstore can buy these for me in order. Because my library only has 4, and they are definitely just scattered. And in fact, I think some of them might be from the Fairacre series. So, yeah, it's just kind of random what they've purchased. Okay, that's it for books that I have finished and can recommend. And I am currently reading The Midnight News by Jo Baker. She was the author of Longbourn, which was the not Jane Eyre, the other one everybody goes crazy over. Sense and Celibacy, no, Emma, the one where Emma is. That one takes place in the kitchens of Longbourn, the house where Emma is living, and that was a really good one. I think I've spoken about it. And so this one is taking place in the early years of World War II in London, and we've got Charlotte, who is probably depressed, possibly has had some significant trauma that she has received care for. Based on where I am in the book, I'm not sure it was very good care. She's had her brother die, and there's other things that are happening that are re-traumatizing her. And yeah, there's characters. One of the things that she's trying to do as the bombs are falling is she's trying to keep track of the different people that she knows around London, and so she's still trying to go to her job, but she's also just trying to check in with all these people that may or may not have survived the bombing. And as you know, there was a lot of bombing, so she's pretty exhausted. It's interesting. Really get a sense of the environment of London, but that's been so well written about in the past too. It's like I probably am doing a lot of filling in. So yeah, I'll see whether I like it in the end. I'm about a third of the way through. So that's it for me. For those of you who followed my story down the hill, I'm doing a lot better. My hand is working, and my left leg is healing. No squats in my future because the muscles are still pretty... Ooh. So no dancing, no squatting, but I am managing to walk, and I am managing stairs if I've got a handrail. So things are getting better, and I'm not going near that boat again. I don't know what we'll do in the fall when it comes time to pull it in. Yeah. Huh. Something to think about. Anybody want to come and help with the boat? Anyhow, I'll talk to you all later. I hope you have really good reading weeks, and that's it for now. I hope all your reading dreams and adventures continue to come true.